a amazing week. After last week, we went through all of the questions. Who did any of their homework or even thought about it after?
What was the what was the homework? Did I miss something?
Just answering, just going through the questions that we went through last week.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there was some discussions, some items, on the self-reflection, some of the items that you pointed out. Those topics that I've been avoiding my whole life, right?
Yeah,
Some topics landed softly and some was hard to face. So, I can't wait to it's gonna be a workshop. It's gonna be a work in progress over time, and I hope to get some nuggets out of these calls so that I can work through those difficult discussions in my head that I've been avoiding. So yeah, I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but it's working.
good. And so here's what I wanted to and when I look at, you know, one of the first question was about, are you building something or are you just staying busy? So when you look back at this week, like we're Friday now, you look back at this week, how do you feel now that we are here at Friday? How do you feel? Do you feel like, where did the week go? Like, oh my God, it's Friday already? Do you feel like I've got so much still to get done and it's Friday already? Or do you feel like do you feel empowered and that you actually have a week that you can be proud of and feel was productive and that you started to move into that next level? Go ahead, Marcia. Oh, you have to unmute yourself. Marcia, you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. You just asked a series of questions, and my answer to what you just asked would be all of the above, because all of that goes on all the time. And what when looking back, reflecting back over the week, as you prompted us to do, I can see that in the last week, I've shifted from giving more attention to the, oh, really, is this to-do list 3 pages long right now? Whatever, right? Um, from that, focusing more on that to really, really like celebrating the shitload of stuff I've gotten done and cleared away and accomplished and planned and put in place and all that kind of stuff. Completed on lots of completions, etc., in the last week, and all that other stuff is still there. All that other overwhelms, like, oh, have I put this on my calendar? I better check that stuff, right? That's always there. I've really intentionally shifted to focusing on what there is to celebrate and really, really pause to do that, because I don't pause very often. Yeah.
You all can give credit to Marcia for this great little piece that she just brought up. And that is, we need to give ourselves more credit for the things we do and the things we get done, and not just look at that which is not yet done and celebrate that which is done in a way that we honor ourselves for how hard we freaking work and the things that we manage to, in some cases, the magical things that we pull off for clients when that they don't know we end up doing when the shit hits the fan behind the scenes, and we pivot, we make phone calls, we beg, we plead, we process, we reposition all of those things, and we just do it, and the clients have an expectation of it, but in the background, they're not going, they're going to be happy, but they don't know necessarily everything that went on. So often we have to pat our own back that we got something, we of what we did. And because if we don't celebrate ourselves, there may not be anyone else that celebrates for us. Go ahead, Jackson.
Yeah, I guess I did have some time to reflect. Had a very busy week. My mom did a surgery last week for cancer, and she's kind of up and down. But all in all, it was probably the best of the worst case. And, no chemo, no radiation required. So from that perspective, just God bless. And then during that time, one of my siblings hurt their leg, and I had to take them to emergency. Like ne never ending from that perspective. But from a work perspective, I think what I think the conversations really started to trigger a few things. One was um you I use a you know and you don't know, right? So you know what you don't know what you don't know. You know what you don't know, and you don't know what you know. And that framework really kind of shone this week. I learned a little bit about myself is you know what you know for me is actually it's dangerous, right? Because I'm a how person and I want to know everything, and that becomes a time suck, right? So, what I have to learn is accept the fact is, I don't know what I don't know, and keep it that way, right? I know curiosity sometimes, like, for me is like that's the danger. So, because once I'm involved, I can't just do half job, right? I have to, even if
It's the
the
squirrel
like
effect.
yeah, even if it adds no value per se to me, if I've committed to it and I'm gonna put in my 120% and like I'm a part of this Chinatown thing and city wants a audit or wants to do certain things and I'm probably going well above and beyond, and like the city talk person I was talking to, like our executive director, like Jackson's like perfectionist, isn't he? He's going like way above. But I want to build it for a better future, right? I don't want to repeat it, make the same mistake twice. So, but anyway, I think the other one was really important for me was you don't know what you know, right? And I had a really good conversation with a with a guy. He developed a an app for Edmonton developments and stuff like that, and it's functional, it's running and everything. And I kind of look at it and I'm like, hey, like what's this assumption? Like, there's a calculation in there. And he's like, oh, the city has a limit for a square foot calculation. The floor plan has to be X. I'm like, that's not right. I said, I think you got that wrong. Like the calculation is intended to calculate the number of units allowable to be built, not the actual floor plan. Because I do development, all of my properties are under this number. So I knew, right? So then, I'm like, okay, you really should look at this because this is your thing is live in production, right? So like sometimes, like even the people who actually have live operating systems could get it wrong, right? And I know even more than they do per se, right? So sometimes like don't undervalue your knowledge and whatnot. You he wants to look at how we can work together now, right? Because he recognizes like that. So is
All you did was, all you did was add value,
yeah.
right? Like in that instance, what you did was add value. And just back to what you were talking about before about, going all in on different things, and when you go, you learn something, you go all the way. That's the busyness trap,
Yeah.
right? That's the busyness trap to be aware of. Is this going to serve me, serve my clients, serve my business, serve my life, or is this just another squirrel moment and a busyness trap? So be cognizant of those things for yourself, Jackson, for sure. Irina.
Yeah, actually, I can totally understand what Jackson is saying because I have run into similar scenarios with different tools providers that are so numerous out there right now. So that tool Onwell that I use for my clients and I like it, but they like in my view they haven't done a good job of so let's say when they calculate like future purchasing power, they don't factor in property tax. And for many clients, it inflates the possible purchase price by at least like 50,000, in some cases by 100,000. And when I pointed to them and I said, I think this is wrong. I think you need to fix it. And they were like, oh, it's just a conversation starter. And most mortgage brokers don't mind that. And I know that, like, I don't know, with my clients, it doesn't fly well, especially with
No,
those who are dreaming about buying
no.
a detached house and the system tells them that they can do it. And then when they run their real numbers, their buying power is at least like 50 or $100,000 less. So I guess my conclusion from all of this is that I will probably build more tools myself. And luckily now with AI, we can do it and we can build it the way we want, the way we see it, the way that it calculates properly. So I'm just, I would encourage you, Jackson, not to actually shy away from it if it's helpful in your business. I built the tool for my rentals to manage my rentals because there is no good tool out there to do it. So like I don't know if I can. I think it would be a different thing to go in production and start selling it because then it's a lot more responsibility
Yeah.
and there are like a lot more things involved such as like marketing, sales, and I'm not necessarily sure I want to do that. But I think for many things we do every day in our work, we can start just, creating the tools we need ourselves. On the other hand, referring back to what you said, Keith, about uh, the things we do for our clients in the back that they're not even aware of sometimes. Yeah, I used to just do all those things and not even tell the clients that I had to pull so many strings to actually get that deal done. And Alex, my husband, said, "Oh, you should let them know because otherwise they will not value as much." And I think I have a problem with just like bragging about myself. Like it's not in my personality, and I kind of feel like yeah, like I shouldn't be doing that. But sometimes you have to let the client know. And I also had a question because sometimes I have clients who are fairly difficult cases, and their case is way more complicated than most usual clients. Yet they're so kind of like no matter how like you try to explain them that your case is difficult, you have this issue with your income, your like down payment comes from overseas, so it's also like complicates things, but they're so just oblivious and they're like they prefer to blame everything on us. And just recently we had the case where it was really difficult for us to get it done, but we got it done. The mortgage funded and everything happened. But now that client goes around and tells everybody how bad the mortgage brokers we are, that we know, and it just feels so unfair, because we know that we did the best and the deal funded and the client was aware and we explained to him multiple times, why it was more complicated than usual cases. But he just prefers to ignore all of that and he blames us for not the smoothest experience he had. So I don't know how to deal with that.
Sorry, can I just quickly, Irina? It's funny. I'm all about building tools, and funny thing is, actually, you talk about property taxes. Actually, my tool actually, when I was looking at it, had that property tax thing myself, and I exactly did that. I solved that. I actually had to figure out how to factor out um the difference between a new purchase price and a rough re-tax calculation.
Yeah.
So it's kind of circular like mathematically, because you
Hmm.
need a price before you can get a property tax. But
Yeah.
but like, so it was kind of going like, it was trying to reverse calculate, but it wasn't. It was like circular. So anyway,
Yeah.
I actually figured out how to solve that yesterday too. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
funny
No,
you talk about
I
that.
think with Onwell, it wasn't a technical issue. They could solve it technically, but they decided not to because they said that most mortgage brokers want their clients to see a bigger number.
Mm,
And like
Absolutely,
to me,
because
like
what does it do when they're competing with the bank,
mm.
right? So it
yeah.
gives a number, but then so to me, I don't like it. It's a little bit of bait and switch, and I don't like it. But and so that's
It would be nice if they had an option, right? Like, how do you want it to be presented to your clients? Some would choose, just put the
yeah,
biggest number, and some could choose put the realistic number.
yeah,
And yeah.
yeah. So what I'll say with regards to your client, Irina, is the number one thing you can do is to reach out via phone if you know that you're hearing that they're saying those things, out there, and just straight up ask them, say, I wanted to just follow up that, we're happy that we got the mortgage closed. And I understand that you may not be pleased with how the process went. Please tell me what you wish would have gone different, and
Mhm.
just listen. And you can take a lot of steam out of them by asking that question. Because now, once they've told you and you've acknowledged it, and and you say, thank you for letting us know, there's some things there that we'll, take into account for people with a similar situation like yours going forward. You may not ever run into that same again, who knows? But it's what we do, right? It's how we try to reinforce that, we're not perfect. And you can even say that I'm sorry I'm sorry we didn't meet your expectation of perfect. Um we
But
you know
it just, but like like in that particular scenario, the client was never in a risk situation. They were not at risk of losing their
no, and
deposit.
that's
They
yeah,
closed on time. They went to the solicitor on time. It was just, they didn't expect that the lender would request so many additional documents. And
yes,
that's why they got upset. Because
yes,
probably their friends are telling them stories
yeah.
that, oh, it was easy peasy. We just provided like employment letter, 3 months bank
I tell you
statements.
what, I had a similar conversation first thing this morning with a client that's going through a purchase right now. And
Mhm.
her husband took 3 months off, 3 months vacation this year at the beginning of the year. So his year to date and his income is, he's in oil and gas project management. And so his income's off. She makes great revenue in her business, but doesn't declare very much income. And so, and they want to buy with 5% down, even though they have like $750,000 worth of net worth, they could buy this property cash if they wanted. Right. And she's like, well, it just seems like, there's so much information. Like it's like, it doesn't matter how rich we are and I'm like, you're right. And, when you're buying with 5% down, it honestly, the money you have invested helps support, but it doesn't work into the calculations for debt servicing.
Mhm.
So, and then we had the conversation about, well, if you did put 20% down, here's what could be possible stuff, but they don't want to put 20% down because they don't see the forest through the trees a little bit. And so, right, and there's a little bit of ego that comes in there, and I'm not going to tell it you, but I can hear it through their voice that there's ego at play there. And so, that we look this great on paper, they should just give us the money. And so
Yeah,
we'll manage our
and
way
that
through. I've worked with these clients before. We'll manage our way through it. But in that situation, I would say the best thing you can do to take the steam out of their sales is to give them a phone call. Once you make that phone call and you get to actually talk to them, it's amazing how much steam it takes out of their sale. Because
but
then,
should I mention that I hear rumors that they're not
no,
happy with our
no,
service?
no,
No.
no. You just reach out, just say, hey, you know what? I just wanted to reach out, follow up, see how's the new house? How's the new house? How's the new house? How are you guys, how are you guys adjusting? Are you liking it? I also just wanted to touch base, and I know that, the process, the process and the amount of documents we had to get through to make it happen seemed like a lot. And in reality, for you, it was more than we typically would, maybe had to have gotten from other clients. And I appreciate that you were willing to get us those documents and make it happen. And so I wanted to thank you for all the work you put in to get us the documents so that we could, complete your mortgage. Do you have do you have any comments or feedback on the process that would help us going forward that you'd like to share?
Mhm.
And if they say nothing, if they say, no, we don't have anything, say, okay, great. Then I appreciate that. I thank you very much. I'm glad. And I hope that you'll be a voice of support for us when talking to people about their mortgage needs.
Mhm.
There's only so much you can do,
Yeah. Okay.
but it's
Can I
amazing.
add something to that?
Sorry,
Sure.
go ahead, Marcia.
I was going to say, can I add something to
Yeah.
that? I completely agree that having a conversation is probably like the best step. And I would consider that you give the standard of service you give, which is like, sounds like it's phenomenal. Okay, and most people say it is, but this is what you offer, this is what you do. Sometimes you go the extra mile, etc. And there's one person who's communicating that you weren't a match for them, that the standard of service you give, how you did what you didn't match what they needed. And so if you shift your perspective to that, right? This is what we offered. We did our best and we just didn't end up being a match. That can be okay, right? It's not about, do I give good service or not, right? Everybody knows you do. You know you do. And so they can say whatever they want to say, right? And you just keep doing what you're doing, right?
And that's,
So
yeah, yeah. And it's not that you're trying to convince them that you did a good job. And
Oh,
that's,
not at all.
yeah.
No, no, no. Just
And even in your
acknowledging
mind,
that.
and I would never tell them, well, we just weren't a match. I would,
Yeah,
like I said, you take the wind out of their sails when you get them. One, you'll take the wind out of their sails just by following up to check on, how are things. But two, by, acknowledging that the process was, that you understand that they felt the process was more cumbersome and that you appreciate everything they did to help make it happen.
But
And
do, I think the bigger question is, like, to me, and luckily I don't get too many of clients like that, but
yeah,
to me, it's sometimes it's always about ego, right?
yes,
And they feel so great about themselves that if you try to tell them that they're actually not as great, at least in terms of their income and down payment, they don't like it. So instead of acknowledging that, oh yes, my let's say I know, like, let's say if I ever do a mortgage for my rental properties, I know that I'm a difficult client. I have like multiple rentals. Like for a mortgage broker, if you have a portfolio of, let's say,
Yeah.
8 rentals, it's a lot of work, you know? I do my best to structure it that, they get it in the best shape. All the documents are like really well organized and everything. But it's still, I'm a lot more difficult than most clients who just buy their first house, you know? I understand that, but I acknowledge that. And I will never say to the broker that they're a bad broker, that it takes them longer to process my file, because I know it takes long because of the
Yeah.
volume.
You're in a
But
different
in this
position.
scenario, yeah,
Yeah. You're in a different position because you sit in that chair and you see it.
yes,
And
yeah,
so that's why all we can do is try to manage those relationships in the best way we can. And part of that has to do also with the initial conversations that we have too. And so that's also another piece of the puzzle that we have to be aware of as we get into the things that we do. This conversation is great because what we're talking about and many of the things, the underlying theme that we've had is around transformation. Because honesty only becomes powerful when it becomes action. And so the conversations are the thing that changes everything. And that's one of the things that I'm saying in that situation for you, Irina, with going back and having the conversation with the client, is that it can change everything. It can potentially shift the narrative. It may not. However, if you do nothing, don't expect anything to change. And that's the reality of everything, right? So the most important conversations that we'll ever have, though, are the ones we have with ourselves. Because when we sit in quiet and we sit in our own honesty without being in a situation where we're performing for a client, are we really even prepared to take on transformation ourselves? How can we expect our clients to be able to accept and move into a place of transformation if we ourselves are not ready, willing, and able to also take on transformation? So we have to name that truth, own that truth, and live that truth, because truth lives in clarity. And that clarity, then we can create action from having that clarity. And then once we do that, then we get the freedom from it. So no matter what it is that is nagging us, whether it is a client that's maybe unhappy, whether it's a lender that's causing, that we feel is causing us problems, whatever it is, we need to make sure that we are naming our own truth in that and owning it and then living it as well. And that's super critical in how we go through every day. Because when we look at the transformation pyramid, it all starts with awareness. That's see the truth. And that's the same. So for ourselves, but for our clients, that is where we need to spend the majority of a conversation with them. It's the smallest and it's the bottom piece of the pyramid here, but it's the most critical because it's the foundation. And that awareness, once you help for yourself or your clients to be able to have the awareness around the truth of everything and getting that acknowledgement, and that can be the piece we often leave left hanging, is we almost get to the point where we get to acknowledgement, but then we step away from it because it feels uncomfortable. Or the client, we can see the client's feeling uncomfortable, so we move away from it rather than letting them sit in it for a minute, even in silence, and waiting for them to respond. Then you get to the decision stage. So if we are able to change and have you experience that transformation, how would that feel? Are you ready to then take that action to have those small steps to create the results so that they can then move, so that you can move forward? And then in business side, then it creates that discipline and momentum and consistency. It also does it for your clients because now they start to live through the belief and the truth of the transformation that you've set out for them. And then they can become unstoppable. Maybe it's unstoppable in how they're going to build wealth. It's going to be unstoppable in actually how they've readjusted their monthly budget. You become unstoppable because you're constantly transforming yourself in your business and learning and adapting and adjusting and not being stuck in, well, this is, why did this change? Why did they change that? As opposed to going, okay, it's changed, I have to adjust. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. But we have to be able to get beyond the frustration, accept the transformation, and then that means transforming ourselves. And I think as mortgage brokers, we actually have to transform ourselves constantly because of changes and how we think, how we process deals, and then how we have the conversations as a result of that. Because all of this goes back to where we started in week one, talking about building a community. And it starts with the consumer. And what are consumers? What do they do? They're takers, right? But you're the person that's created the community, so you're the person sharing. And as we share, you become the leader and the guide to them. And then you're taking on the role of building your community and developing your community, trying to generate this energy that's going to build in such a way that it becomes that of its own self, in a sense of people's support and growth for what you do. And then you are creating that community legacy. And people will say, well, I want to leave a legacy. Well, what do you know? What happens if you live your life to leave a legacy? Do you have any idea what happens with that legacy after you're gone? You really don't. So you have to decide. I think the preference is to live a legacy. Live the legacy you want to be, so that when you do leave this world, you've left impact. And it's the impact that you leave behind that becomes the critical piece. And it may even be that you're living your legacy as a mortgage broker, and then when you retire, you've still left that impact. And you get to see it, but you're going to see it from a different perspective. So something to keep in mind. So one of the things you can look at is your growth plan. What in building your community? How are you going to design your ecosystem? What part of your business and your leadership are you going to bring into your community? And look at start following and seeing, is it impacting revenue, right? And start to generate it. Then building that infrastructure around building your community, building your business, furthering that leadership and that revenue. And as you can see, then when you launch and you optimize, it all becomes it becomes exponential. And you're always maybe having to go back and redesign the ecosystem, rebuilding some infrastructure. Just as your business grows, maybe even your clientele may change, or the expectations of your clientele change. So these are things that we have to keep in mind as we go through this process, because it's commitments that create change, and that change become a transformation requires that commitment, because a goal is only a wish until it becomes a commitment and it's followed with action. So when it comes to looking at your business, what is it that you'll start? What is it that you will stop? That's the bigger one. What are the things you're going to stop doing that aren't serving you? And what will you keep doing that is serving you, or maybe doing it better? You can use these questions in a different form, even with your clients. I would say, with regards to what will you stop, I would use a question such as, if everything stays the same as it is right now, how will you feel? Then the other side of that is, if we're able to resolve whatever the challenge, problem, or upset is that they stated, if we're able to resolve that and take care of that so that you could achieve whatever it is that they need to achieve, how would that feel to be able to live that every day? And the other side of that is, and if we did nothing, how would it feel to continue to live within that every day? So everything becomes cyclical and circular. Because the challenge is around, what are you building? But more importantly, who are you becoming? And in looking at who are you becoming, what is it that you're avoiding? Because we love to avoid that which is difficult and hard for us to acknowledge. So choose with intention, build with discipline, and lead with honesty with yourself as you progress. Operate from a place of intention as you build communities and you create equity and you start transforming lives. Because community is an asset, transformation is the product that you offer, and taking ownership is the strategy. Because it all comes down to your visibility. And your visibility is your responsibility, not anyone else's. Treat your visibility as a service in the things that you say and do, you provide. Have a consistent presence with a purpose that matches what you want, because that visibility will create access for people to yourself. And for those of you that want, you can use these questions to do a little bit of a self-audit. This goes back to kind of session 1 a little bit. What am I pretending not to know? Or what am I hiding from? What am I tolerating in my business daily? What would I do if I wasn't afraid? If I didn't have judgment of myself, if I didn't let fear make decisions? And if nothing changes, what will my life look like in 5 years? And when you're building that community ecosystem, identify who is the community for. What's the transformational process that you're creating? What recurring experience will the community members feel that will make them feel part of the community and want to continue? And if there's an infrastructure behind it, what owned infrastructure will support it? And I think, Irina, you've mentioned a little bit about that. Jackson has as well. Doug, you go ahead.
Keith, can you bring up the slide? I think it was slide number 35, where you ended up with owner slash leaving the legacy.
Okay.
I'll just use that slide as a talking note. Can you share that slide again?
Yeah, just one. Not the transformation pyramid. Just a second. The growth plan?
No, the timeline,
Oh, got it.
from
The builder's
consumer
journey.
to
The builder's journey.
yeah.
Got it. There you go.
Okay, so this slide spoke to me and hit me like a ton of bricks and got me thinking. I got a question for you too on how to grow. So, I've gone through my past life. I went through from consumer creator, became a leader, builder, but I took a lot of shortcuts in my journey, and I went straight to the ownership part of things, right? I was stuck in the owner for 8 years, and I ran out of gas. So I found myself stepping back a little bit to fill in what I've been, neglecting, right? So if I were to re-advance myself again to the owner stage, my fear is I don't want to hit the same snag again, what I've experienced from the past. So that has
Yeah.
created that limiting belief in my system, right? So I'm kind of scared to
Change what the idea of the owner of being the owner is. Be the owner of the community that you're building as opposed to the owner that you were in the past. So this
so
is
the
not about
owner the
being not about being the owner of a brokerage, but about being the owner of the community that you're building for clients to support you.
Which I think Doug is doing really well right now, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. And you're doing it with the agents that you're also doing it, you're also building a community with the agents in Edmonton that you support as well. So perspective, right? It's interesting because your brain took you to what, when you saw the word owner, your brain took you to one specific place because that's how you interpret that word. That's how you interpret the word. However, being an owner is being an owner of your business, of what you have, the community you're building, which is what we're talking about, doesn't mean that you have to be a bigger owner of a bigger business. Be the owner and create the legacy from where you are, where you're happy where you're happy with what you're doing, with the role you're in, and take it and mold it, make it your crystal ball, and just keep molding that space so that it continues to feel like you. Because going and trying to now do something different, from what you're saying, it wouldn't feel like you because that's not where you are. So be careful with in just understanding where did that there was a trigger of that, just that word triggered you to think it has to be this, when in reality it's just about just taking ownership of your own community.
makes sense, Keith. Thanks, man.
You bet.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead,
Cheers, man.
Jackson.
Yeah, no, I mean, Doug, like you are the right now, I would say you are the gold standard of this community building. Like, honestly, like you probably don't realize it, but like the amount of like industry professionals you're connecting us all to, like it's added unbelievable value, right? Um, uh, uh, Slide 36, which is the next slide,
Yeah,
really resonated with me. Um, it was the commitment to create change. And slide 36.
yeah, got it. There we go. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So these three questions, what will you start? What will you stop? What will you keep doing? Um, the other words I would use in front of instead of what is, why will you start? Why will you stop? And why will you keep going? And then also how, right? How will you start? How will you stop? And how will you
Yeah,
keep going? So
absolutely.
that this slide really hit me.
And honestly, and it's this slide and these questions and the additional questions that you mentioned, Jackson, are things that we need to, I don't want to say constantly, but on a regular basis need to evaluate in our business. As Irina mentioned, about Ownwell, and you know what? There's a distinct part of it that doesn't fit and feel right to her and to probably other brokers. And so you have to then make a decision. Will you stop? Will you keep it going? And maybe the end result is that you will start something different and do something different. So it can be it can be somewhat cyclical because especially if you stop doing something, well, if you stop doing something, what are you putting in its place? Like that time that you were using on for whatever it is you stopped doing, what are you going to put in its place? And so that is something to be aware of is as you go through that process, and no matter how you ask those questions and the additional questions, especially if you stop something, what are you doing? If you're going to keep doing something, does it mean that it's going to take away from something that you wanted to be able to start? So be cognizant. There is a distinct impact and effect to the answer to every one of those questions.
Yeah, and I in my personal frameworks, everything comes down to time, money, and effort, right? So if you start something, it's going to take time, money, effort. You stop something, it might remove some time, money, effort, right? And
Yeah,
so yeah, that's one of the, things in my head is always looking at that and
yeah,
saying, time, it seems to be my biggest challenge.
yeah. And it is, and that's why using your calendar is so important. Calendarizing things, using your calendar, scheduling them, and here's one of the things that we don't do, and I even have to be better at this, is that during times when I don't maybe have things scheduled in my calendar, where I'm checking emails, but I get a call from an underwriter that I take, or I get a call from a client that I take, that I don't go and put it in my calendar that I just did that to account for that time. So that when we look back, we recognize and realize that, yeah, I just spent 15 minutes with the underwriter on the phone on that deal. I just spent 10 minutes with the client to answer their questions, whatever it may be. So
I guess, can I ask a question maybe of
absolutely.
Keith or maybe Irina, because Irina is really into tools. Um, have you guys found any like really effective time management type tools, like, that can like automate tracking of time or whatever? Um,
It's pretty hard to automate. I find it's hard to automate time. I mean, if you have, it depends on what systems you're using for assigning tasks maybe to yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Certain like with Claude, Irene and I were just in the Claude training this week, and there are certain things you can set up through setting specific things through Claude that will be reoccurring for you that can be placed into your calendar. The hard part is that you also have to make sure you leave openings for clients to be able to book and schedule calls for you too. So you can't, so there's certain aspects of it that you have to leave open and free, flowing, because you need to be able to have conversations with clients, new clients or even existing clients to answer their questions. However, you know, like for me, when I put things in my calendar that were recurring, they're in there forever. My block for my lunch is in there forever. My personal training sessions are in there forever. My morning time is in there forever. Those are the things that are in there, and then other things get added. So it can be because of the world you came from, Jackson, in the business world that you were in the engineering world, it was very different because right, you didn't have this, well, what if a client emails me that they want to talk today because they've made an offer to purchase or whatever. You didn't have that in that world. Our world is a little more free flowing in this business because of that. So you can schedule things to a certain extent, I believe. Unfortunately, there is that variable of the unknown of that which you can't necessarily schedule.
Mhm.
Like, are you using like Google
I
Calendar
just use
or?
Google Calendar.
Mm.
Yeah. I use Google
Mhm.
Calendar, and then I use Go High Level. So my clients, my calendar link for my Go High Level is connected to my Google Calendar. So when people book, it goes right in there.
I would also recommend just find what's your biggest struggle.
Yeah.
Like, why do you need it? Like, in my case, I struggle to focus because I know that there are so many things I want to get done. And because of the amount, and like, it's just like, I feel like I need to do all of them all at once, and that's and I kind of need to focus myself and say, okay, this week, and I'm not talking about like day-to-day things, deals or client conversations. I'm talking about like working on the business. So if I want to implement something in my
Yeah.
business, I need to allocate time for it. And I started playing with Claude as my kind of like personal trainer in terms of focus, and I said, okay, this is how I usually am. I like everything shiny. I try to implement everything all at once, but I need to help me focus on this one task for this week. And just, kept like every time I want to do something else, instead, stop me and refocus me. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it's helpful.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I feel like I'm a firefighter,
Uh,
you know?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm just like constantly trying to get the stuff done, and then here's another fire to fight,
Yeah.
Here's another fire to fight.
Yeah.
Chinatown's really on fire. Okay, I gotta deal with really
Yeah.
a new fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dougie, go ahead.
Got a question for Irina. You mentioned Claude, right? I've heard that many times. Is that just another version of Chat GPT? What is
No.
Claude?
Claude is
Claude,
yeah.
yeah,
No, it's
it's
a
kind of
hundred
like
times
Chat.
better.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
kind of
hundred.
like Chat GPT, but better. Yes.
It's an
Yeah.
AI.
Wait, wait.
It's AI. It's AI, but it has
But same category as ChatGPT,
yeah.
Gemini. It's
Yeah.
LLM,
Yeah.
large language model.
Hmm.
But yes, Marcia mentioned once you switch to Claude, you kind of don't like ChatGPT anymore. Like most people I know, they feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, in
Okay.
through AI, as far as which one is better at any given time, it seems like this one's better, and then this one's not, and then this one's better, and this one, and then this one's better, and this one's so it's really, it really does vary. So
And Stu has explored all of them from a compliance
yeah,
perspective, given that we're just trying to figure out best practices and stuff.
yeah,
And he says that, and some of you, I think, have heard him say this, that the only way to have our stuff be as compliant as can be right now is to use Copilot inside of Microsoft, right?
if you're using it
And
to analyze client documents.
yes, yes, yes. Well, if you're going to use it and expose anything, even about like the lender stuff and all of that, right? Stuff
Yeah.
that we aren't necessarily at liberty to disclose. And so he's strongly recommending Copilot. And I've been watching lots and lots of videos in the last month about Copilot. And I gather that there's now some kind of connection between Claude and Copilot. And so some of the stuff that Claude had, sooner, like even the stuff that rolled out just in the last 6 months, Copilot now has those integrated as well. And so I did my taxes, as you know, with Claude, but I'm going to right now start out diving in. I mean, I've started playing with it, but I'm really going to go in and set it up and use Copilot to keep everything in Canada and keep as much local on my computer as possible and all of that.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, with Claude, you can do that too if you work from folders. So
Yeah. So, all right. That's it. That's 11 o'clock. I hope you guys all had great insights from today and have yourselves an amazing weekend. And for those of you that are fathers, happy Father's Day. And for those of you that have fathers, make sure you wish them a happy Father's Day. So
Thank you, Keith.
happy Father's Day, everybody.
take care. Go Canada.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.